Welcome back, or welcome, if you're finding your way here for the first time. Let's settle in again. Find a comfortable position. Let your body go a little heavy. Let your breathing slow. We're picking up where we left off, 15 presidents in, with the country on the edge of something it couldn't quite see yet. The next man is someone people are still arguing about. More than 150 years later, you don't need to hold on to any of this. Just let the words carry you. Abraham Lincoln, 16th President, 1861 to 1865. Abraham Lincoln rarely slept well. He was prone to depression. He called it the hypo, short for hypochondria, the word used then for what we now recognize as melancholy, of the kind that settles in for long seasons. He had lived with it his whole life. He managed it through work and through humor and through the people around him. He told stories constantly. He was known for it. People would come to him with urgent matters, and he would respond with a long, wandering story that seemed at first to have nothing to do with anything, and then, at the end, had everything to do with everything. His cabinet sometimes found this frustrating. He didn't stop. He was 6 feet 4 inches tall, the tallest president in American history. His stovepipe hat made him taller still. He kept letters and notes tucked inside the hat, close at hand. It was his filing system. He loved cats. He had several cats in the White House. When asked once what his hobbies were, he said, "Cats." He meant it. He once found 3 orphaned kittens at a Union Army camp and brought them back to the White House with him. He visited them at feeding time. He made sure they were comfortable. He was shot on the evening of April 14th, 1865. He died the following morning in a small room across the street from Ford's Theatre, in a bed that was too short for him. His Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, stood in the room and, when it was over, said, "Now he belongs to the ages." People have been repeating that ever since. Andrew Johnson, 17th President, 1865 to 1869. Andrew Johnson taught himself to read as an adult. He had received almost no formal education as a child. His wife Eliza taught him to read and write after they were married. He was grateful to her for this. He was devoted to her. He kept a family of white mice in the White House. He had discovered them in a closet and, rather than removing them, began leaving food for them. He made little containers for the food. He checked on them at night. A president of the United States, alone in the White House at night, checking on his mice. He was impeached by the House of Representatives in 1868. The first president to be impeached. He was acquitted in the Senate by a single vote. He finished his term. He ran for Congress after leaving office and eventually won a Senate seat, the only former president to do so. He went back to Washington. He was not someone who gave up. Ulysses S. Grant, 18th President, 1869 to 1877. Ulysses Grant's real name was Hiram Ulysses Grant. When he was appointed to West Point, a clerical error gave his name as Ulysses S. Grant. He tried to correct it. Nobody corrected it. He eventually accepted it. He didn't know what the S stood for because it was not a letter from his actual name. He sometimes told people it stood for nothing. Other times he said it stood for Simpson, his mother's maiden name. He seemed not to mind the ambiguity. He had a deep fear of blood. This is striking for a general who commanded armies through some of the bloodiest battles in American history. He could not eat meat that was not thoroughly cooked. The sight of red meat made him ill. He managed his fear quietly, in private, for his entire military career. He smoked 20 cigars a day, on average. He became publicly associated with cigars after newspapers reported that he had been seen smoking one at a critical moment during a battle. After that story ran, The public sent him crates of cigars as gifts, tens of thousands of them. He smoked them. He developed throat cancer and died of it in 1885 after leaving office. He wrote his memoirs in the last year of his life, racing against the cancer, knowing he was dying, trying to finish before he couldn't write anymore. He wanted to leave his family provided for. He finished the manuscript 4 days before his death. The book sold tremendously. His family was taken care of. He made it. Rutherford B. Hayes, 19th President, 1877 to 1881. Rutherford B. Hayes and his wife Lucy were known for their warm and quiet family life at the White House. They held regular evening gatherings that included singing around the piano. Hayes sang, the staff sang, guests sang. It was informal and friendly, and people seemed to genuinely enjoy it. Lucy Hayes was the first president's wife to be college educated. She was principled and unpretentious. She did not serve alcohol in the White House, which made her popular with temperance advocates and less popular with diplomats who expected wine at dinner. She was called Lemonade Lucy by her critics. She didn't mind. Hayes was given a Siamese cat named Siam, the first Siamese cat in the United States. It had been sent as a diplomatic gift. The cat lived in the White House and was reportedly imperious and demanding. Siamese cats, then as now, tended to be. Hayes kept a detailed diary. He found writing in it calming. He wrote almost every evening before sleep in a small, careful hand. He recorded ordinary things, the weather, what he ate, what Lucy said, just the texture of the days. James A. Garfield, 20th President, 1881. James Garfield could write in Latin with one hand and Greek with the other simultaneously. He was genuinely ambidextrous in a way that went beyond merely functional. He would sometimes demonstrate this for people. It never failed to impress. He loved books and read constantly. He could also, reportedly, listen to someone read aloud in one language while he read something different in another language. This may be an exaggeration. It may not be. He was a deeply decent man who almost nobody had a bad word for. He had come from genuine poverty. He was the last president born in a log cabin and had made his way through effort and intelligence and a particular kind of warmth that people responded to. He was shot in July of 1881, 2 months into his term, by a man who had wanted a government appointment and had not received one. He did not die immediately. He lingered for 80 days. The doctors treating him were well-meaning but kept probing the wound with unsterilized instruments, searching for the bullet. Modern analysis suggests the bullet itself would not have killed him. The infection did. He died in September, asking what will likely always be a human question. What is the matter? He was 49 years old. Chester A. Arthur, 21st President, 1881 to 1885. Chester Arthur owned 80 pairs of pants. This is not an approximation. It is the figure that has come down through history. He was devoted to his appearance and his wardrobe, and people in Washington took notice. He was considered one of the best-dressed men in the Capitol. He renovated the White House shortly after taking office. He felt it was in poor shape and hired the designer Louis Comfort Tiffany to redecorate it. He had 24 wagon loads of old furniture and items removed and auctioned off. Some of these items were later regretted. Some were not. He redecorated, and then he worked late into the night, often until 2 or 3 in the morning, and slept late to compensate. His staff learned to adjust their schedules around this. He worked at his own pace, and the work got done. He was diagnosed with Bright's disease, a serious kidney illness, shortly after taking office. He told almost no one. He managed the illness privately for his entire term. He died 20 months after leaving office. He had known, for most of his presidency, that he was dying. He said very little about it. Grover Cleveland, 22nd and 24th President, 1885 to 1889, and 1893 to 1897. Grover Cleveland is the only president to have served 2 non-consecutive terms, which is why he is counted as both the 22nd and 24th president. There is a child alive today who once asked a teacher who the 24th president was, received the answer Grover Cleveland, and then asked who the 22nd president was and received the same answer, and the child assumed the teacher was confused. The teacher was not confused. Cleveland was a large man. He weighed well over 200 pounds, sometimes significantly more. He was physically strong and had enormous energy. He answered his own telephone. He answered a great deal of his own correspondence personally. He liked to do things himself. He married Frances Folsom at the White House in 1886, the only president to marry in the White House itself. She was 21 years old. He was 49. She was the daughter of his former law partner, whom he had known since she was a small child. This was considered somewhat unusual. They were apparently happy. She was popular with the public and warm and capable. And when Cleveland lost his re-election bid, she stood on the White House steps and told a member of the staff to take care of the furniture because they would be back in 4 years. They came back in 4 years. Benjamin Harrison, 23rd President, 1889 to 1893. Benjamin Harrison was the grandson of William Henry Harrison, the 9th President. He was acutely aware of this. He sometimes felt that people supported him partly because of the name. He worked hard to distinguish himself on his own terms. He was the first president to have electricity in the White House. The electric lights were installed during his term. He and his wife Caroline were somewhat frightened of them and reportedly refused to touch the switches themselves for some time. They had the staff turn the lights on and off. This was probably reasonable. Electricity was new and strange and occasionally set things on fire. Caroline Harrison worked to renovate the White House and gave particular attention to its history and artifacts. She painted china. She was an accomplished artist. She died of tuberculosis during Harrison's presidency in 1892, and he grieved her quietly for the rest of his life. He had a pet goat named his Whiskers, belonging to his grandchildren, that lived at the White House. The goat once escaped its enclosure and began trotting down Pennsylvania Avenue. Harrison chased it himself in his suit past startled passers-by. He caught the goat. He brought it home. William McKinley, 25th President, 1897 to 1901. William McKinley wore a red carnation in his lapel almost every day. It was his good luck charm. He occasionally gave it away to children or visitors he met, replacing it shortly after with a new one. He took this ritual seriously. He was gentle and patient and well-liked. His wife Ida was epileptic, and seizures could come at any time, including at public events. McKinley managed this with quiet grace, sitting beside her at dinners, watching for signs, calmly covering her face with a napkin if a seizure began, to protect her dignity, and then continuing the conversation. People who witnessed this remembered it. He was shot at a public event in Buffalo in September of 1901. As with Garfield, he did not die immediately. He lived for 8 days. He asked that no one harm his assassin. He worried, as he was dying, about how Ida would manage. He died on September 14th, and his last words were the words of a hymn, "Nearer, my God, to thee." Theodore Roosevelt, 26th President, 1901 to 1909. Theodore Roosevelt read at least one book a day, every day of his life, including days when he was on military campaigns, traveling abroad, or running the country. He read across everything: natural history, poetry, history, military strategy, novels. He read books the way other people breathe. He was blind in one eye, following a boxing accident in the White House. He had kept up a habit of boxing throughout his presidency, sparring with military aides and any willing visitor. One blow detached the retina of his left eye. He eventually gave up boxing and took up judo instead. He earned a third-degree brown belt in judo. He was 50 years old at the time. He had the White House formerly named the White House. Previously, it had been referred to by various names, including the Executive Mansion. Roosevelt printed the White House on his official stationery, and the name stuck. He once gave a speech after being shot. He was on his way to a speaking engagement when he was shot in the chest. The bullet passed through his metal glasses case and his 50-page folded speech notes before entering his chest, slowing enough that it did not reach his lung. He felt the wound, determined he was not coughing blood, concluded he was not fatally injured, and proceeded to the venue. He gave the speech. It lasted nearly an hour. He showed the audience the bullet hole in his notes. Then he went to the hospital. William Howard Taft, 27th President, 1909 to 1913. William Howard Taft is remembered for being large. He weighed over 300 pounds at his heaviest and had a bathtub specially installed in the White House large enough to accommodate him. The bathtub could fit 4 average-sized men. This is the fact people know about Taft. What they know less often, Taft hated being president. He found it exhausting and thankless and unsuited to his temperament. What he loved was the law. He had always loved the law. He had wanted, his whole life, to be a Supreme Court justice. After his presidency, after losing his re-election bid in a difficult 3-way race, he eventually achieved his real ambition. In 1921, President Harding appointed him Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. He served there for 9 years. He called it the fulfillment of his life. He went to work happily every morning. He slept, people said, very well. He is the only person to have served as both President and Chief Justice of the United States. Woodrow Wilson, 28th President, 1913 to 1921. Woodrow Wilson kept a flock of sheep on the White House lawn during World War I. It was a practical measure. The sheep kept the grass trimmed, freeing the groundskeeping staff to contribute to the war effort. The sheep were also shorn, and their wool was auctioned to raise money for the Red Cross. They were productive sheep. Wilson suffered a massive stroke in October of 1919 while traveling the country to build public support for the League of Nations. He collapsed and was brought back to Washington. For the remaining 18 months of his presidency, he was largely incapacitated. His second wife, Edith, managed his communications and his schedule. She met with officials on his behalf. She decided who could see him and who could not. Some historians have called her America's first female president. This is both an overstatement and an understatement. Wilson was the first president to hold a doctoral degree. He had been a professor and then president of Princeton University before entering politics. He remained, in some ways, more comfortable in an academic setting than a political one. He thought carefully and spoke precisely, and sometimes failed to translate either quality into the blunter language of political persuasion. Warren G. Harding, 29th President, 1921 to 1923. Warren Harding was, by many accounts, not particularly qualified to be president. He seemed to know this. He had a convivial personality and played poker with his friends and was comfortable with people in a way that translated well to politics without translating as well to governance. He was deeply fond of his dog, an Airedale named Laddie-Boy. Laddie-Boy had his own hand-carved wooden chair at cabinet meetings. The press covered Laddie-Boy extensively. The dog gave interviews, in the sense that reporters would ask Harding questions about the dog, and Harding would respond as Laddie-Boy. This was considered charming at the time. Harding died in office in 1923, during a trip to the West Coast. The cause was likely a heart attack, though the circumstances were murky enough that rumors circulated for years afterward. He died in a hotel in San Francisco. Laddie-boy was eventually given to a Secret Service agent who had cared for him. Calvin Coolidge, 30th President, 1923 to 1929. Calvin Coolidge slept 10 to 11 hours a night and also took a long afternoon nap. He was the most sleep-devoted president in American history. He saw no reason to apologize for this. He once said that a great deal of the world's work could be done by men who were not always so busy. This was probably true. He had a pet raccoon named Rebecca, who had been sent to the White House originally to be served at Thanksgiving dinner. Coolidge declined to eat her. He kept her as a companion. She was given a collar engraved with her name. She was walked on a leash around the White House grounds. She unscrewed things with her hands. He was fond of her. He also had many other animals: cats, dogs, a goose, 2 lion cubs, an antelope, a bear, a donkey, a bobcat, and a pygmy hippopotamus named Billy, among others. The White House was a rather lively place during his administration. On the domestic side, Coolidge was famously a man of few words. At a dinner party, a woman reportedly told him she had made a bet she could get him to say more than 2 words. He said, "You lose." He went back to his meal. Herbert Hoover, 31st President, 1929 to 1933. Herbert Hoover was an orphan. He lost his father at 6 and his mother at 9. He was raised by relatives in Oregon. He worked his way through Stanford University and became a mining engineer of some considerable success before entering public life. He was a skilled administrator and a genuinely generous person. He had organized massive food relief programs during and after World War I that saved millions of lives in Europe. He was internationally known for this work. He arrived at the presidency with a formidable reputation. The Great Depression began within months of his inauguration, and it fell on him in ways both fair and unfair. He was blamed for things he didn't cause and criticized for responses that were not entirely wrong. He was not a cold man, though he was portrayed as one. He suffered the pain of the era personally and deeply. He lived to 90 years old, the longest life of any president to that point. He spent his post-presidency decades doing quiet service work. He was rehabilitated somewhat in the eyes of the public. He fed hungry children in post-war Europe. He organized government commissions. He showed up and worked. He had always worked. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 32nd President, 1933 to 1945. Franklin Roosevelt served longer than any president before or since, 12 years and 39 days. He was elected 4 times. He led the country through the Great Depression and through World War II. He was often too tired to eat dinner and had it brought to him in the form of a cocktail, a simple martini, which he mixed himself each evening. He was particular about the ratio. He had been stricken with polio in 1921, 12 years before becoming president. He never walked again without assistance. He used a wheelchair most of the time, though this was rarely photographed or publicly acknowledged. He had a deep agreement with the press of the era not to show him as incapacitated, and they largely honored it. Most Americans, through 12 years of his presidency, did not fully realize the extent of his disability. He had a Scottish terrier named Fala, who went almost everywhere with him. Fala was famous. Fala received fan mail. When Roosevelt died, Fala reportedly ran to the gate of the Hyde Park estate again and again in the days following, waiting for a car to come. Roosevelt died in April of 1945 in Warm Springs, Georgia, where he had gone for rest. He was sitting for a portrait when he said quietly that he had a terrific headache. He died within hours of a cerebral hemorrhage. The war in Europe ended less than a month later. 32 of them now. 32 men, and all the days that make up a life. The long mornings, the small rituals, the grief carried quietly, the joy that surprised them. Let the quiet settle around you here. Let your breath come slow and easy. Whatever was on your mind when you lay down tonight has probably moved a little further away by now. That's how it works. If sleep takes you now, go. The last 14 will be here when you need them. Good night, for now.